Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. The election coming upon us in November may be one of the most important choice points in American history. If you're a Trump follower, you believe that America is on the verge of a takeover by radical communists who want to socialize the American economy and dictate your every move. Radical communists who are using lockdowns to train you and me to be our own jailers in a new totalitarian state. Radical communists who control, guess what? The Democratic Party. As a Democrat, I can tell you that's a fantasy. Conservative governments have been using the tools of socialism ever since ultra-conservative German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck started government programs for old age social insurance and workers' accident insurance in 1881, 139 years ago. The right has screamed that programs like Social Security, Medicare, and food stamps are rabid socialism ever since the 1930s. But these allegedly socialist programs have gentled capitalist democracies and have made them more stable and secure for nearly a century. They have not produced totalitarian communist states. On the other hand, if you're an anti-Trumper, you believe that we are on the verge of a dictatorship in which a totalitarian named Donald Trump rigs elections, turns them into sham victories, stays in power as long as he lives, and installs a dynasty with his children as future presidents. But there's something even we fear-filled anti-Trumpers do not know. According to the book Disloyal by President Trump's former attorney and enforcer, Michael Cohen, one of the few people who knows Donald Trump inside out, Donald Trump may want a dynastic dictatorship in which he is not only president for life, but in which he does what his idol, Vladimir Putin, has done in Russia, takes a fifth of the American economy for himself and turns himself into one of the world's first trillionaires. That, according to Michael Cohen, is the kleptocratic role model of Putin imprinted on Donald Trump's brain, and that is the kleptocratic model Donald Trump may well want to imitate. As of mid-October of 2020, when I'm recording this, the race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden looks very much like mid-October of 2016, when CBS News released a poll showing Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump by 14 points. Joe Biden is 10.1 points ahead in the polls as of today. Biden is even 5 points ahead in the polls taken by the pro-Trump Republican polling organization, Rasmussen. In the election of 2016, Donald Trump lost by 2.8 million votes according to the certified vote count, but he won in the Electoral College. Now President Trump is in serious danger of losing the key states that gave him his Electoral College edge. However, it appears that no matter what happens, Donald Trump intends to stay in the White House. There are three new tools in Trump's bag of tricks to override the popular vote. First, Donald Trump has warned us that he will not accept an election loss. He's told us that this is going to be the biggest election disaster in history. He's told us that the only way he can lose is through fraud. And he has claimed that the nation is being flooded with millions of mail-in ballots. Ballots going to everyone from folks who have been long dead to their long dead dogs. Research says that Trump is wrong. Even the deeply conservative and deeply Republican Heritage Foundation has only been able to find 1,290 instances of proven voter fraud in a nation that casts as many as 130 million votes in just one presidential election. In other words, research reveals that voter fraud in the United States is almost non-existent. What's more, Trump has signaled that if he loses, he will take his case all the way to the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is making sure that the Supreme Court is filled with Republicans picked by, guess who? Donald Trump. McConnell is packing the court. Among other things, the goal seems to be to maximize President Trump's odds of winning, even if he loses the popular vote. But is that possible? Winning, even if you lose? Yes. And it's been done 2 times in the last 20 years. Remember, the Democrats won the popular vote in 2000. But the Supreme Court handed the White House to a Republican, George Bush. The Democrats won again in 2016. But the Electoral College turned the White House over to a Republican, Donald Trump. Now President Trump seems to be hoping that will happen again. If it does happen, it'll be the 3rd time in 20 years in which a Democratic victory in the popular vote has been handed over to Republicans in either the Supreme Court or the Electoral College. Does this mean America's elections are now being regularly rigged in favor of Republicans? There's a second tool in Trump's bag of tricks to override the popular vote. Donald Trump was planning an October surprise. He was planning on a Justice Department report showing that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden pulled off what Trump calls the biggest act of treason and the biggest attempt at a government overthrow in history. The Clinton-Obama-Biden criminal deed was supposedly the fact that the FBI started a counterintelligence operation to probe Russian meddling in the American election of 2016, an investigation that led the FBI to guess who? To Donald Trump. In Trump's eyes, this investigation was an illegal effort to spy on his campaign and later to pull off a coup, to throw him out of the White House. The Justice Department report was supposed to lead to jail sentences for Clinton, Obama, and Biden, and it was supposed to bolster Trump's Twitter argument that Joe Biden is ineligible to run for president, thus leaving only one man standing on November 3rd, Donald Trump. The investigation of Trump's political opponents is being carried out by United States Attorney for the District of Connecticut, John Durham, under the supervision of Trump's bulldog, Attorney General William Barr. So far, Durham has yet to lay his cards on the table. But an interim Justice Department investigation by John Bash, a U.S. attorney appointed by Attorney General Barr to vet the issue of unmasking, said it could find no wrongdoing. And a disappointed Bill Barr has told Republicans that the really big investigation, the Durham probe, won't be ready in time for the election. What if he's wrong? And that investigation drops in the next 15 days before the election. Brian Stelter, the star of CNN's Reliable Sources and the author of the book about Trump titled Hoax, says that Trump operates by spitting out conspiracy theories like machine gun bullets. Before you can fact-check today's conspiracy claim, Trump springs tomorrow's conspiracy claim on you. When the Obamagate investigation of unmasking seemed to collapse, Stelter says the Trump army came up with something else. MacBookgate. To understand the possible sources of this tale, it's important to remember that in July 2016, the FBI became aware of a disturbing fact about Russia. Russia is making war on the USA using a tactic it calls active measures. Active measures involve using the cyber realm to get Americans to tear each other apart, destabilize their own country, and bog it down so much internal strife that it becomes ineffective on the global stage. So ineffective that it estranges us from our allies. On August 7th, a statement released by William R. Evanina, the director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, revealed that Russia was determined to help Donald Trump by smearing Joe Biden. As a result, it's become hard to tell the difference between genuine information and Moscow's dirty tricks. At 5 a.m. on Wednesday, October 14th, a newspaper owned by Fox News owner Rupert Murdoch, a deeply committed pro-Trumpite, the New York Post, broke a story allegedly based on the contents of a MacBook Pro that was supposedly dropped off for repairs for water damage at a Wilmington, Delaware computer store in April of 2019. The computer supposedly had a sticker for the Beau Biden Foundation on it. Suspiciously, the customer never came back to reclaim the expensive laptop. And suspiciously, the owner of the store where the computer was left was John McIsaac, an avid believer of Trump conspiracy theories, like the Seth Rich urban myth. The Seth Rich urban myth is a tale in which Seth Rich, a 27-year-old worker for the Democratic National Committee, who was shot in the back twice at 4:40 a.m. on July 10, 2016, in what the police believe was a failed robbery, was actually killed because he had leaked Hillary Clinton's emails. Those emails were later proven to have been leaked by Russia. Does depositing a disinformation-riddled laptop with a deep Trump believer sound like a Russian plant to you? It does to me. Though McIsaac is legally blind, he was almost certain that he recognized the man who dropped off the laptop as Hunter Biden. McIsaac perused the contents of the laptop, made a copy of the hard drive, and somehow got it to Rudy Giuliani. The computer allegedly contained sizzling videos of Hunter Biden smoking crack and having sex, the kind of video it is now easy for a government or a rich private individual to fake using artificial intelligence software. And the hard drive allegedly contained emails in which an executive from the Ukrainian energy company Burisma thanks Hunter Biden for putting the Ukrainian executive together with Hunter's father, Joe, meaning that by putting Hunter Biden on its board, which it did, Burisma was buying access to Joe Biden. This is the sort of thing that most reports say never happened. In fact, the Washington Post went through Biden's calendars and demonstrated in great detail the fact that this meeting between the Burisma executive and Joe Biden almost certainly never occurred. And sources like the State Department's Amos Hochstein, the special envoy for the Bureau of Energy Resources, who worked closely with Joe Biden on the Ukraine, have testified under oath that Joe Biden never let Hunter's involvement with Burisma touch him. The New York Post claims it obtained the MacBook emails from two highly unreliable sources: former Trump advisor Steve Bannon and that man who appears to revel in receiving and spreading Russian disinformation, Rudolph Giuliani. Remember, Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal attorney, has spent a substantial amount of time in the Ukraine with a source that the Treasury Department has sanctioned as an active Russian agent, Andriy Derkach, a member of the Ukrainian parliament. And over a year ago, our intelligence departments tried to explain to the White House that the Russians were using Giuliani as a pipe to carry Moscow's disinformation straight to the Oval Office. Is the MacBook story valid information or a Russian smear designed to help Donald Trump? Like the harmless Clinton emails that the Russians leaked to President Trump in 2016, emails that Mr. Trump was able to make sound criminal. In the atmosphere of the current campaign, it's impossible to tell, but the Washington Post is currently investigating the question. More important is tool number 3 in Donald Trump's bag of tricks to override the popular vote. There is talk of a potential civil war if President Trump loses. Donald Trump has his bully boys, his brown shirts, his militias, and the folks he calls his Second Amendment people, America's gun enthusiasts. The white supremacists and Boogaloo boys have been cooking up ways to start a civil war for at least 40 years. They want a race war that they believe will allow them to purge North America of blacks, Jews, and immigrants, leaving them with an entire continent that's racially pure and white. So it's no surprise that there are threats of armed violence if Trump loses. According to Fox News, it appears that Team Trump, or a rich Trump fan, may be recruiting a private army in at least one state, Minnesota. A Tennessee-based private security firm offering special operations level services, Atlas Aegis, has been hired by an unnamed private sector client to provide security guards for polling sites in Minnesota. Meanwhile, an online job listing from Atlas Aegis hints that this private armed force will continue to operate well after the election. Says Anthony Caudell, the president of Atlas Aegis, they're there to make sure that the Antifas don't try to destroy the election sites. That's a very Trumpian statement, that we need to militarize polling places and maintain a private standing army to defend against Antifa. Look, I loathe Antifa's breaking of windows and burning of buildings during peaceful protests. But let's look at facts. In the last 26 years, right-wing groups have killed 329 Americans. Antifa has killed none. It's important to remember that Donald Trump has been blunt about encouraging violence. He said at his rallies as early as February 1st, 2016, "If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously, just knock the hell out of them. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise." President Trump also implied something else, that under his courts, suing Trump bully boys will be hard because the courts will agree with us. No wonder, then, that a nurse who praised Donald Trump on stage at the Republican National Convention has been arrested for shooting another woman in an argument. No wonder that two militias in Michigan responded to Trump's words that Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is the lockup queen and his exhortation to liberate Michigan by plotting to kidnap, try, and possibly execute the governor. And no wonder a Trump supporter at a pro-Trump protest in Denver sprayed a security guard for a local television crew full in the face with mace and was in return shot by the security guard. Leadership that encourages violence is poisonous to democracy. America's core values, freedom of speech, pluralism, and tolerance, mean the world to me. I'm deeply concerned that they may disappear as swiftly as Rome's 300-year-old democracy was turned into a dictatorship by civil war and by Julius Caesar in 44 BC. So we have a simple civic obligation right now. Vote and do everything in your power to oust Donald Trump from office. Everything but violence. This is Howard Bloom speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask. Ask how. And now for that infamous, sleazy, slimy, sneaky little off button. I think I've got it.